This is a Balkan tragedy. It involves empire and nationalism, religion and race, the power blocks of East and West. It concerns Europe's largest movement of refugees for 40 years. In less than 2 months, 150,000 people, all from the Turkish minority population of Bulgaria, have left their homes and jobs and fled the country.
We had to run away from this operation. Yesterday the police came, they gave us 3 hours, said, gather your things.
I've got a son born in '71. He hasn't done his military service yet. They didn't let him come with me. I left him there in the street.
And now it's come to this. All their possessions, all they could gather, dumped in cattle trucks. This is what remains of the world they've left behind. They clutch the newly issued passports which got them out of Bulgaria, the land where they were born, which now denies their very identity. 5 years ago, the Bulgarian government announced that all its 9 million citizens forthwith would have Bulgarian Slavic names. For the 13% whose ancestors were Turkish, this was when the terror started. Restrictions on their language and religion followed.
Conditions are unspeakable. You can't go out, you can't talk about anything in your own language. You utter a Turkish word in fear and you look around to see if anyone heard you. When we go downtown wearing our traditional baggy trousers, the old women are ridiculed and beaten up. That's why we want to be in Turkey.
The Turkish government has said it'll take all the refugees who want to come. 250,000 have applied for passports to get out of Bulgaria. Another million could join them. While most go straight to relatives who've arrived in previous, less dramatic waves of migration, for many, a tent in a border camp like Erdene will be the first residence in the homeland. Necdet Cemal and his wife Misemi are doctors from Razgrad in northern Bulgaria. Necdet was one of those who led protests against the name changing. He was jailed. This year, with the distribution of passports, he was told to leave the country, his country. He refused and was beaten up. Now he's relented.
I'd like to have continued living in Bulgaria. I've got 2 big houses, land. I could have lived there if only my name, my rights, schools, mosques weren't banned.
Do you consider yourself a Muslim?
I'm 35, never been to a mosque, it was banned, but yes, I'm Muslim.
So at the camps, there's a process of education. Lessons in Turkish language and culture, and in Islam. In Bulgaria, such gatherings are illegal. Everything Turkish has been suppressed.
My father died many years ago. They asked what his name was. I said, Gusten. They changed it to Radi.
They changed your father's name on the gravestone?
The names were written on the stones. They ordered us to paint over them. There was a fine if you didn't.
The overriding emotions are confusion at what's gone before and a rising anger.
I'll never go back to Bulgaria. I'll only return with a gun.
The Turkish government, long criticised over its own record on human rights and with its popularity plummeting, suddenly has an issue to unite the nation. At a huge rally in Istanbul, there were even calls for military action against Bulgaria. While the Turkish government isn't about to send a task force, it has launched forays with undiplomatic language. The foreign minister accused the neighbouring state of crimes against humanity and compared Bulgaria's president to Hitler. And Turkey's Prime Minister, Turgut Özal, in one of his looser moments, made reference to Bulgarian pigs. We found Mr. Özal somewhat bashful about that, but hardly penitent. You yourself reportedly referred to Bulgarian pigs.
No, I didn't say that.
You were reported as saying it only 5 days ago at the refugee camp at Gebze.
No, I said there is a definition in Turkey, this definition was done many, many years ago during the Balkan War. Bulgarian atrocities, yes.
Is it right to invoke that sort of thing at this time, though?
But unfortunately, they have done it. They have done it. I mean, you have seen there are young girls coming from out of Bulgaria, and the Bulgarian policemen and soldiers have made some very bad things to those girls, young girls.
Well, they've raped them?
Yes.
And that's happening?
It is happening today, I mean, this century, in this month.
The eternal flame to the dead heroes of Bulgaria. Between these countries, the Iron Curtain remains. On this side, in the Bulgarian capital, Sofia, it's no surprise that the official government view is different. This is one of the most repressive of all the communist states. Elsewhere, it may be the age of glasnost and perestroika, but here, no matter what they claim, the clamps are down as tight as ever. Nationalism, patriotism are played for all they're worth. Beneath them, the memory of 500 years under Turkish domination as part of the Ottoman Empire. Here in Bulgaria, the 5 centuries of Ottoman rule are a constant reference point. The dark days under the most brutal yoke, as the government puts it, must never return. So this seems to be the Politburo's line. Only by rebuilding the national identity, by denying the identity, the religion, even the names of the biggest minority, the ethnic Turks, can Bulgaria escape its past. At the end of May, when the first ethnic Turks got their passports and began their flight across the border, President Todor Zhivkov went on television. Zhivkov, Bulgaria's leader for the last 35 years, insisted there were no Turks in his country, only what he called Bulgarian Muslims. He ignored their complaints of persecution and accused Turkey of mischievous propaganda. Now, at the Politburo, they expand on Zhivkov's theme that foreigners, that's Turkey, would like to put back the clock of history.
We would be very happy if this was just history. Unpleasant, dark, but history. But unfortunately, it's not so. We are quite prepared to forget about that if everybody forgets. But when very authoritative people in Turkey would say that we should wait until Turkey becomes 70 million people, and they will show us who is who on the Balkans, or that the army should get to Sofia as soon as possible. This is not just talk. It indicates that some are not willing to forget that they were the masters of the colonial masters of the Balkans, and that there are pan-Turkish ambitions still alive.
In a predominantly Muslim village in the south of Bulgaria, a family home is cleared for the last time. They're among the latest to head for Turkey. In the 7 villages in this area, Enchets, half the population has emigrated. That's in 8 weeks. Most of the rest plan to follow. There's no hint here of their being wooed by the Turkish government, of succumbing to propaganda. These people know the reality of life in Bulgaria as a Muslim, an ethnic Turk, and they want to get out.
My brother-in-law's brother died 15 days after being released from the police station. He went in weighing 70-80 kilos, and when he came out, he was about 40-50 kilos.
And even the wishes of the dead get no respect here. What we were told by the old refugee in Turkey is borne out by this boy burying his grandfather.
He would have preferred his Turkish name on his tombstone. But now Turkish names are forbidden. That's why we put just the dates. I've done another one like this over there. Before, we had the Turkish names, but they broke them.
Outside the cemetery, a group of youths took advantage of our presence to approach the local mayor, who was shepherding us around. They complained that while their families had been allowed to leave for Turkey, they'd been forced to stay, pending their national service. Some boys refused passports, had hanged themselves. The mayor said this was a national, not local matter, So we asked him about the local treatment of those who dare to speak Turkish in public.
First we warn them, so these people have been officially warned. Then we warn them a second time, and if they deliberately do it again, we fine them. It's a very minimal fine.
You fine them? But why on earth should somebody be fined for speaking the language they choose?
I told you, the official language in Bulgaria is Bulgarian.
The nearby city of Göçü is 70% Muslim. 4 years ago, tanks were sent in to quell demonstrations against the government's policy. Many were killed. Now, half the Muslim population has gone to Turkey, and the rest are waiting for passports. Meanwhile, they've stopped work. This has crippled the local bus system, disrupted the mining industry, and much of commerce. It's the same across the country. At this shirt factory, they've lost 1/3 of production because workers have left. They're now trying to import labour from Vietnam and China. Some Bulgarians are being told to forego their annual holiday to help out in such cases. Others volunteer. But the loss of the ethnic Turks is felt most keenly on the land. Bulgaria is traditionally agricultural. Because of the labour shortage, the tobacco crop, which is vital, is in trouble. So people are being asked to do 2 jobs. Some of these crop pickers are from local hospitals, others are waiters from a hotel. Why are you doing this?
Someone has to do it. This belongs to the people. We can't let it rot. This is a sort of national wealth, and we have to take good care of it.
There are few dissident voices. Last November at Sofia University, a group in support of Glasnost was born and all but strangled instantly. Now Professor Chavdor Kirianov is one of the few still willing to speak out against the government's intransigence over the Turks.
The solution would be a real understanding between the Turkish minority and the rest of the Bulgarian people. In spite of the fact that now there's a kind of chauvinistic wave raising among a part of the Bulgarian population, and this wave is not coming from below.
It's coming from the top?
That's what I think.
And at the top, in the Politburo, they're not backing down. Their attitude now is one of resignation to the Turks' departure.
Well, they must have their reasons. You've spoken to them. Certainly you've heard different views, and you may hear many more. Everybody has his reason.
Do you not think that your government might have made a mistake?
If you mean that by opening our border we've made a mistake, I would disagree with you.
No, I don't mean that. I mean by your policy towards these people.
After all, what we've done is open the border for every Bulgarian citizen to leave for a short or a long period, to settle abroad, to come back. And that is something that has been done in accordance with our commitments under the Vienna Accords.
No, I don't mean that. I mean in your policy towards these people. Don't you think that you were wrong?
No, I don't think so.
At the border, the desperate procession goes on. Up to 5,000 a day are leaving. Those without rail tickets or road transport cross on foot. Rumours that the government will soon revoke the passports or close the borders have increased the urgency. And all the time, the state feigns incomprehension. Our government-licensed interpreter, Kristina Vasilyeva, personifies this. She apparently saw it as her duty to tone down or mistranslate the Turks' grievances. Via Kristina, a beating became a simple insult. A killing was translated as an arrest. So why, Kristina, are the Turks leaving?
I don't know. Really, I don't know.
You don't like Turks very much, do you?
What does like or love mean? I mean, in a civilized world, in the 20th century, you can't like or hate a nation. Well, but I can't forget what lies behind us, and that we had a very eventful history. Bulgaria spent 500 years under Turkish domination, and this is a thing which I can't forget.
These people are leaving behind all that history, the half-millennium of enmity. Out of hell with all possessions in a handcart. Turkey is far from a bastion of freedom and democracy, but they'll risk the uncertainties there. Better, they feel, than Bulgaria, a country which would crush their faith, their culture, their selves.